I'll call you right back podcast.
Up, down, a little bit more.
I think that's pretty good.
Good?
Yeah, how about me?
I think you sound good, yeah.
Scoot up a little bit.
Yeah, scoot up. Once
How's
you,
that?
yeah, like once, if the closer you get, the better you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, dude, this is I was excited to have you come over and learn more about what you do. You seem to be, I mean, a busybody yourself, but your wife also. Like, you guys are a fucking power couple.
Which, I mean, we're just we're too creative to try to make it without having like a real job, I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, you're doing a pretty good job at it, it looks like.
Thanks.
Doing some cool stuff. It's weird. Me and my wife were just talking about how we even like kind of met. I feel like it was kind of strange, that whole situation.
Yeah. Well, we had two other people that were supposed to show up and they canceled. So that's why we had the seats open. So yeah, it was kind of.
Yeah, strange. Because like my wife is in the wedding scene, your wife is in the wedding scene, and they like follow each other and shit, and it's just a small world.
Yeah, it was wild.
Small world. And then I found out, being the inquisitive person that I am, I immediately just start berating you with questions. And luckily you were receptive to it.
I didn't know you were a podcast guy, so it was interesting that you were. I was like, oh look, someone who's friendly.
Well, I mean, I feel like I feel like that usually I was friendly first, and then the podcast kind of came out of that. I've always just been real curious about people.
Yeah.
Just like, everyone's lives. Ultimately to, get to the point where I mean, I just ask people to come on here that are already doing some cool shit, and I just like want to hear about what they did right, what they did wrong, what shit they wish they didn't do, stuff like that. But I mean, like, what would you consider yourself? Like how it, like I was trying to, put a label on it, so to speak. But like, I mean, you're an artist, you're running events,
I don't know. I mean, I've never really. We joke around, like my wife Alexa and I joke, like, I hope he doesn't ask me what I do. Because I don't really know. I just do a bunch of different things revolved around art, motorcycles, business in general, just to try to have enough for like a regular job. We grew up in a small town, West Virginia, so we didn't have a lot of.
You're from West Virginia?
Yeah, both of us are. We came from a small town called Wellsburg. It's not too far from here.
Okay.
But we always wanted to at least do something creative. I feel like we had to. And it's a long story with my history with motorcycles and where it came from. But eventually we ended up just kind of having our, what we call a creative company, which basically was just my wife and I's way to do freelance work.
Yeah. That's Wild Native?
Yeah, that's Wild Native. And then Wild Native was basically, from the start, was what would happen was I would have, like, companies would get a hold of me to do creative work for them, whether it was branding, trademarks, logos, websites, stuff like that. So I did that for a while. And then in the between little jobs like that, I would just kind of create my own projects. Like, we would create a magazine or an event or just do something else. And eventually, after time, those started to become successful enough that I didn't have to I didn't have to take on all this little side gigs. Yeah. So I started, I stopped taking new clients.
Picking and choosing.
Yeah. So now the company basically is just like an umbrella for all the different little projects we have going on.
That's wild.
We've chiseled that away as well. As certain ones have become more successful and have taken up more of our time, we've sort of wanted to step back a little bit and have some more free time and say, let's just do these 4 or 5 projects and put our heart into that.
Yeah. West Virginia originally, though.
Yeah. Right on the border.
You both are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how long have you been together?
Since December 2011, January 2012.
Okay.
Yeah,
so grip. Yeah. I mean, did you know each other back then? Were you from the same town, you said?
Yeah, we grew up in the same town.
Okay.
We met at a mutual friend's house that lived right across the street from her old place. So it was just kind of something where we bumped into each other. And we were both weird enough to find interest in each other.
The souls attract.
Yeah.
So how big is the town you're from? How many people did you graduate with?
I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know the answer to that, honestly.
I know. I feel like it's so
not that big. It's not that small.
But it's not like huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. I feel like whenever I try to like gauge people where they're from, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm from a small town." It's like, I feel like it's hard to gauge what that means because one person, I can't remember right off the hand, but she was like, "Yeah, I graduated with like 60 people," and I'm like, That's small.
Yeah, that's small. I would say we had maybe a couple, 200-300.
Yeah, that's right where I am. We were like I think we were like 230 or something like that. So it was like small enough to be able to like, know everyone in the neighborhood and in the school, but like wasn't crazy where it was like, 800 people you're graduating with.
Yeah, right.
Insane. I mean, like, so what's your life like as a kid?
Like we grew up outside. Like I grew up outside of the city. Alexa grew up kind of bouncing around in the town of Wellsburg. I call it a city, but it's a town.
Yeah.
But it was mostly the country life. I grew up riding dirt bikes and just setting shit on fire, cutting down trees, just shooting things with BB guns, like whatever.
Typical kid shit.
Yeah.
When did the first dirt bike come into play?
When I was little, I mean, my dad was into bikes, which is the generic story for every guy who got into motorcycles. Was my dad rode motorcycles, and then he kind of would just, because he had some land. I mean, he was building his house that we were living in as we were growing up.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting project. And then he would just get us like little quads, little ATVs, little bikes, things like that to ride around, and it was always something we had around. And then as my brother Luke and I kind of got more in the teenage years, we started to get more interested in like the trail riding and the racing motocross, and then it just never really stopped from there.
So that all started in the middle school round.
Yeah, even before that, I would say even like 7, 8 years old.
Yeah, but like the motocross, like taking it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, I think early high school, late middle school was when I started to get more into the motocross.
That's cool.
I grew up playing sports, soccer, and all the different basketball, baseball. But I never really cared much for the team stuff. And then like once I realized, you can race motorcycles, it was a lot more fun. It was a lot more expensive, but we made do. We just kind of did what we could.
That's cool. So were you doing more like like trail races?
No, it was the tracks, like jumps, like the motocross tracks.
Yeah, that's sick.
And you'd kind of mix it up. Every now and then you'd toss in like a trail race or something.
I had I mean, like I didn't, that's one thing, like I didn't grow up a lot around it. Like we had a quad, we would ride that going hunting and stuff like that, but I've probably been on a dirt bike twice, but like I had a good friend in high school who was like, he was wild KTM rider that like would go ride in the woods and like do these crazy trail races. And I remember watching them and like going up High Point and seeing shit like that, and like that was my exposure. But it was always something that like I loved regardless, even though I didn't ride it myself. I mean, like besides bikes though, like I know you're an artist, pretty good artist. Like was that always something that you were doing?
Yeah, that was basically my main focus my whole life was art. When I was a kid, I was designing brands. Like I remember like I would design shoe brands as a kid, hanging them on the wall.
Where's this come from, you think?
I just bored. I don't know. I was just a loner, really. I was out in the country. We didn't have a lot of people around us, other than my brother and sister. And like we would even do fake radio. Like we would record radio things and make our own videos. So it was just a lot of creative stuff. I didn't really think about it till now, but we were always doing something interesting and creative. Throughout high school, I got more into the painting, like using oil and acrylics. And just kind of kept it up in the background. But as like life kind of hit and I had to get a job, I mean, my dad had a welding shop and we built a little motorcycle shop on the side of it. Okay. So I ran that for a while, and I thought like growing up, this is just what this is what I'm going to do. Like even into college, but it was such an unrealistic dream to run like a motocross shop in a small town. Yeah. To make a living the rest of my life. But while I was doing that, I learned we had to make websites. I learned how to build websites. I learned how to design, get into branding. We designed like our own products, and like I would make them up. He would weld them, make them out of steel or aluminum or whatever. Wow. And then I would start selling them online. So we created like different, it's kind of what I'm doing now, but I'd have like little sub companies under our motocross shop just so we could sell more interesting stuff online, even if it was just specific to one type of bike or something like that.
That's cool. What year is this?
I graduated high school in 2003, so it was probably 2001 I started, maybe 2001 I started that. I was probably like 15, 16.
Yeah. So what, you're 39 now?
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. So back then, I mean, like you were kind of, on the forefront of it all.
Yeah. I've been involved with bikes my whole life. Yeah, and art. That's the interest. It's always been a mix because I've tried, even when I tried to get out of the bike thing, because I'm like, it's not making money or something, I should get into the art. It's always kind of hung in there.
I'm even talking about like the business end of it all.
Yeah.
I mean, for being a young kid that's like, you're trying to do websites back then, like I'm sure not now it's easy, people could just pop onto like, Squarespace or whatever and just use a template. But back then, I mean, like where are you like learning from? Just like, Google type shit that you're just self-starter?
Yeah. Everything was self-learned. I didn't learn from anybody. I didn't go to school for it.
That's cool.
I went to college at West Liberty, and it's just a little college.
I'm familiar. I had a friend that went there.
I didn't really use anything from there, which I feel everybody says.
I mean, dude, I've interviewed like 280 some people, and like I'd say 75% of people were like, I don't use anything I went to school for. Well, let me rewind a little bit. So in high school, you're obviously into bikes, you're into art, but like you said your dad had this shop, and like that was just kind of like, what you kind of was like in your DNA to do. But like, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do after school beside that?
No, I had no idea. I just kind of went with the flow. I feel like I've just gone with the flow my whole life. Like, because I had the motocross, I was racing, and then as I couldn't practice because I didn't have the time and stuff, I had a team that was through our bike shop, and then through the brands that I had a vinyl printing company. We had different parts companies that would have their own brand and like their own like unique little section of the industry.
Yeah.
So I would sponsor different racers and some stunt guys, a lot of street bike stunt guys. And then I would just travel around and do trade shows, events, races, kind of set up.
That's pretty sick.
You're talking about the high point. It was funny because I'd just show up in just some shitty conversion van and park between Honda and KTM, and that would be my team's pit. Like that would be our team.
That's sick. Like the grassroots.
Yeah,
bare bones.
As it gets. Yeah.
That's sick though. That you kind of. I mean, my dad was definitely had a garage, was wrenching the whole time. But as a young kid, I just like didn't gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
I gravitated towards like the hunting and the fishing end of it all, but I just didn't give a fuck about it and I think it's really because my dad was just good at things, and he just wanted to be efficient rather than like sit there and like, have me like fuck things up a bunch. I was more the gopher.
My dad was similar because he was the guy who would be more of the mechanic, where I would be more of like, how can we make it look better, or where can we get more performance out of it? Where he would be the guy that could, whenever somebody would bring in an old Harley or something that needed worked on, it's definitely going to go to him.
Yeah.
At least he's going to be the guy taking care of it. Whereas I'm going to be the one that's doing more of like the cosmetic stuff.
That's cool.
It's always been kind of that way. We've just worked together that way. And it's funny because even his little welding shop ended up like, it was just one small building. And through the years, it's even kind of grown. It grew to this huge, enormous business.
Wow.
Yeah.
Still going?
Yeah, it's still going.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I mean, like, it's 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So your direction out of school and like preparing for real life is like you kind of just like being immersed in this bike world?
Yeah, I didn't think I had a future. I really had no idea. I figured I'm just going to have to fend for myself forever.
Yeah.
Because I never, like growing up in Wellsburg, there was no opportunity. It was like, you get a job at a fast food restaurant, or you leave.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the financial, I didn't have anything. There was no like direction for me. There was really no like anybody to talk to like, what do I do? How do I make money? Nobody really talked about money back then. There was no like, there was nobody that was like, here's some jobs you can do.
Well, you're even, you're almost 40. You're a little bit older than I am. I'm 34. My brother is your age, but I try to conceptualize, the way things were for him, like at, my age kind of. And I don't know, I feel like that there wasn't a lot of talk about like the creative outlets, because back then it really wasn't it. You kind of just fell into, around here, it was like, you could, work for the mill, go to school and be your like standard, like, engineer, doctor, lawyer. And like, you weren't really like pushed towards the trades.
Yeah, there wasn't even in college. I remember I didn't know what a creative agency was. I didn't know like what BBDO and like.
What would you do what were you going to college for?
Graphic design on the side with business marketing. And it was weird because I'd sit in class running businesses and listen to the teachers like, that's wrong. And I feel weird. Am I being an ass for thinking that it's wrong? But it's not. It's like I'm in it and I'm listening to these people who don't run businesses try to explain business. And it was just a weird, the one class I did get a lot out of was like business law. Yeah, that was the one I was like paid attention to.
Yeah,
you know, 'cause
watch your ass.
Yeah, well, it was just really useful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the other stuff, learning about macro and microeconomics is just, you know, how useful is this really going to be for me? You know,
well, that's pretty cool. I mean, so you are going through school, and like as you're going through school, are you still like pretty active at like, you know, you were saying you were designing parts and stuff like that. So you did that the whole time?
Yeah, I just drove back and forth. I mean, I had a place on campus, but I would still leave every day in between classes and go to work at the shop out in Wellsburg, and then drive back to Wheeling area and just kind of do that. And on weekends, I would travel around the country for races and different events.
Wow.
Yeah, so not a lot of sleep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you get out of school. I mean, do you go 4 years?
Yeah, 4.5, because I had the whatever that minor. I had a minor. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah, minor.
Yeah.
So you go there, and I mean, like, what's it look like after school?
Pretty much just working in the shop. Not much of a direction. Just kind of still plugging away with what I'm doing, trying to find new stuff to do. I got more back into the art side of things, where I was trying that, and it really wasn't until I met Alexa and we got together that we kind of, you know, her vision with photography is really what I thought was like, now that I have somebody, I always needed somebody,
Yeah.
almost like as a muse or somebody to keep me mentally stable, I feel, because otherwise I'm just sitting in my house alone,
Directionless.
yeah, and just going crazy in the basement at the darkest hours of the night. And so it was nice to have her there just as another creative, just to bounce ideas off of. And that's when everything kind of started to take off.
Well, one more thing I'm curious about. You're saying that you're like, you know, designing these parts and like creating these things. Like, is that something that like you've always kind of had a knack for? Like you being inventive in certain ways with this?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, and things would come and go. I mean, obviously, I tried a lot of stuff that failed miserably.
Yeah,
you know, like
got to.
But it wasn't like I dropped. You know, I didn't get loans for things and blow it. It was more like me just, I'm going to create it. Now I was good at websites, so I'll make a website. You know, like there was like a pit bike craze for a while.
Yeah,
that was like one that didn't do well. I created a pit bike website, and I would try to get different parts from a lot of the places and do that. And it was just like, unfortunately, it was sort of at the end of that craze, so it just didn't take off as well. So, you know, I just kind of let that one go and moved on to something else and just kept doing little gigs like that.
Yeah. I mean, at that time where you're in school and you're coming out of college, is it to the point where you could make it a career?
I thought I could, but in reality, I mean, if I wanted to live in Wellsburg my whole life, maybe.
Yeah, not a comfortable career.
But there were times, I mean, it's hard to pay attention to the money side of things when you're doing that. I mean, you're like, do I have enough to travel to this event this weekend? But it's a bad way to run a business, because I would do a lot of the street bike stunt stuff. I'd come home and I'm like, I just lost like $1,000 this weekend. Like, what was the point? Like, there was no point in it at all. And a lot of the stuff's not public facing, so it's just like, there's really no like,
juice wasn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, there wasn't really an audience or like customers. It was all just this small little group of people that would just buy stuff off of each other.
Yeah, like a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, for you to, you know, come out of there and kind of keep leaning into it a little bit more, like all the while you're, I'm sure, a fan of motorcycles. You're riding motorcycles all the time, doing this still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always had at least 2 motorcycles in the garage, basically my whole life. You know, upwards to 10.
Jesus.
Yeah, but so I mean, it is just a lot to handle.
Well, I mean, you said that it all kind of started to kick off creatively whenever you met Alexa. Mm-hmm. You know, at that point, you said you were getting back into art. You know, is that just like a passion thing, or are you like, is that like you know, are you selling your artwork at that time? In
2014 or 2008, I started a company that was basically for the branding side of stuff. So that's when I started doing little jobs for companies, and that's kind of when, you know, Alexa and I met years later. But that was sort of the bedrock of how I ended up with like the creative company itself.
Yeah,
because it was just something I was like, well, I'm good at this. Local businesses are hiring me to design stuff. Why don't I just make it a thing?
Wow.
And so I did that. Again, it wasn't exciting work. It wasn't, you know, making a website for a restaurant or designing a banner or something for a local business. But that was basically how everything got started.
That's
And
cool
then
though.
Once her and I met, and I had to really start thinking more about money because I'm getting older. You know, now I'm in my mid-20s, and you know, what am I gonna do? I don't want to just stay here forever.
Yeah.
She's expensive. Like we traveled a lot. She was a singer in a band. Like we went on tour a lot, and it cost some money. So it was just something where her talents and mine, I just put them together. And it was nice because she would tell me if something really was sucked or was stupid, where I never had that before. So it saved me a lot of, you know, these would have been problems down the road if I would have stayed, you know, if I thought this was cool and she was like, that's just really stupid, don't do it, you know.
Yeah, you need a good person to keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, what was like? She's obviously, you know, part of the creative team now and a great photographer. But like back then, was she doing photography then?
No, she worked at Dairy Queen.
Ah, nice.
And then my dad's company, I mean, he was struggling for a while. It's hard. I mean, it's hard running a welding shop. But one of his only client, I think it was 90% of his work was selling their company. It was a Botox manufacturer. So it was like, that was it. What was he going to do? So our family kind of came up with the idea to buy the company that was for sale, which was a big, you know, it was a roll of the dice moment, but it ended up working out great because then now he was in control of the products that he was making anyway. And then I helped him and my brother and like the whole family kind of got involved to sort of make something out of it. So I designed the logos, websites for that. And now it's, you know, this multi-million-dollar company that is doing really well.
Wow.
Yeah.
You said it's a boat dock?
Yeah, it's a boat dock hardware manufacturing company.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it just came from nothing. It's such a wild story. Like his story is really cool too. And it kind of parallels mine. Is like, you know, we were both struggling at certain times, and then certain things just happened, and then we each kind of helped each other because I would use my creative side to, without spending a lot of money, because it wasn't like he had to hire some creative firm out of Pittsburgh or something for hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a website or something. I just kind of made it just while I had free time.
Yeah.
And I had a vinyl printer, so it was like this weird thing where we were like, put the stickers on the products, do these things that make it look a little different than everything else you would see in like the marine hardware industry.
That's pretty neat. You had the younger mentality of it all to kind of trick it out a little bit.
Yeah, it wasn't just old, boring white dude stuff. It was like, let's have a little more fun with it.
Well, I mean, how does you know, Pittsburgh Moto, and you know, when do you guys make it up to Pittsburgh?
Before the pandemic, we ended up moving up. Luckily, before that though, I mean, I had other gigs where I worked with a college buddy for a magazine called the Collective Quarterly.
What was that about?
It was an arts and travel magazine, and I call it a magazine, but it was more of a coffee table book. It was like kinfolk for like interesting travel.
Okay.
So the idea behind it was there was him and his partner out of Chicago started, and I came in like a couple years later to run business operations. And what we would do is for each issue we put out, it was quarterly, but we never got 4 issues out a year, I think. You know, we would pick one area of the country that was interesting, and we would go there for about 30 to 45 days, work with a lot of local journalists, photographers, and creatives to kind of come up with this interesting look into the area. It's like some of them were like Marfa, Texas, back before it was like a hot spot. The Pisgah Forest down there, Asheville, Death Valley out in California, like a lot of these interesting places that people didn't really think of as vacation spots.
Yeah.
You know, we did like Maine, like the Penobscot Bay area. So it did really well. I think we made it through 7 issues, but in between that, we also started our own little creative agency to kind of handle the stuff and a lot of the work we were getting through the magazine. And a lot of stuff got sidetracked and people's lives changed, and it just kind of went its own way. But one of the companies I started that helped found was Charcoal Book Club, which is still running, but it's like my friend Jesse Lenz runs it, and it's still out there. He's still doing it, and what it is like a photo book club, like the art books that you can order.
Yeah.
And it's neat. I mean, you just subscribe, and you can get every month you get a book, or you can kind of set it up however often you want to get it.
Oh, you get like an art book.
Yeah, like for photography, like, you know, a lot of the big, I wouldn't call them big, but they're the popular.
Yeah.
Because it's all still kind of underground. It's its own little thing, but
That's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of the art photographers that do a lot of interesting
So are
work.
you like at that point, like you had a knack for travel? Like how do you guys know where, you're talking about like, highlighting some of the places that were before they started to get popping? Like where do you do that from? Like how do you gain that knowledge on where to go?
Most of those decisions were those guys.
Oh, okay.
I was just kind of running the business and taking care of like how are we going to get the magazine in Europe or Australia,
the
and
logistics,
distribution. Yeah, but really it was just working with other creatives. You'd know people from the industry and you'd see where they were from. And you'd follow them online or see what they were doing and see, you think like, well, that would be a really cool place to go and check it out. And I guess, Alexa and I were always into travel. Like we travel. That was kind of that was what brought us together in the beginning, I think. Like the first year we were together, we did a tour around the U.S. and just hit up like every music festival, like every other weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so like Bonnaroo to like Rhode Island and everywhere in between. It was interesting.
Yeah, that's sick. Well, you come up to Pittsburgh before the pandemic, and like in those times, when did Wild Native kind of come into play?
Well, it's just been in the background. So when Collector Quarterly, whenever I was kind of phasing out of that, and like we were moving more into the creative agency, which is this whole other story, I was like, well, why don't we start like a motorcycle magazine? So that just kind of overlapped. That was in 2017 when we started that.
And why do you? I guess now I understand why you started that. You worked for that travel, basically travel magazine business, and you kind of cross-pollinated your interests with that.
Yeah, I think I missed motorcycles because I was so invested in a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah,
and that motorcycles is what got me where I was. It's always been there, like the art and the bikes. So I figured with this one now, because she's good at photography and like I can interview people and design these little books. It was like we didn't have like a cohesive thing that really brought everybody together from the area. When I say the area, I think greater Pittsburgh, from Wheeling, up to Newcastle, and everywhere in between. Because motorcycles in Pittsburgh let's get real, it's mostly outside of the city. People are going to ride them. But there were a lot of really creative people, a lot of builders and fabricators and different things doing some cool stuff and collecting some really nice like vintage Harleys and different things. And I just thought it would be neat to put it all in like a book and do some type of a quarterly thing for that. Because Alexa and I we did it all ourselves. So we would just travel around, we'd get a hold of people, just people I know that had bikes, and go photograph them, give them a quick little interview.
So whenever you lived down there in Wellsburg, did Pittsburgh have like some sort of a reputation for, bike life, like motorcycles, things like that?
It was like the city. I was traveling back and forth. Alexa was working in Pittsburgh. I was working for like a media company and a different magazine up there. There's so many other things happening, but we were just always in Pittsburgh. So it just made sense that, if we're going to do like a magazine based on bikes, we have to pick the biggest city we're near. It wouldn't make sense because otherwise, like if we're going to produce it ourselves, like if we're going to be the one photographing it, then
you need to have it.
There has to be limitations.
Yeah.
We can't just make it wide open. Otherwise, it's going to be just the same shit I was dealing with at the other magazine, where you're trying to manage and wrangle all these different creatives from all over the country to give you content and then try to whip it together. And for us, it was like hard because there would be inconsistencies with photography styles, and the way it was written, and just trying.
You're talking about if you had a bunch of different people working on it.
Yeah, like if instead of it being like a local magazine,
you guys could kind of have your hand on it a little bit more, being up here. Yeah,
it was like we were in control of it, and like the people that we wanted in it, we can give it a specific look. We weren't like at the hands of just everybody else. Like we didn't have to pay people. That was the other thing. We didn't have to pay creatives. We just did it all ourselves.
That's cool.
Which is probably the main reason why.
You said that was 2017?
Yeah, that was when we put out our first issue.
And like how long did that take to get out from its inception?
It was great right off the bat. It had a really big reception right away. I think people were looking for something. It was still at the time when people were still buying magazines. It was sort of on the way out.
Yeah.
But, motorcycles, people would still buy them. It was just something they liked having around. Like shops would like to put them out.
And like, how did you get your word out? It's like, if it's your thing that you're creating by yourself, it's like, how do you spread the word from making this?
I think I had a reputation, I think, just in the industry from all the other stuff I did. And then we would use social media and just do a lot of the old school business things I did with different little ads and whatever I could afford through Facebook or Instagram or something like that. So it wasn't like I was spending a lot of money on it. It really didn't have any overhead because we were producing everything. I was just designing it in Adobe, in InDesign and Creative, whatever that is, the Adobe CC.
Yeah.
Everything was just done at home on a computer, and she was photographing and editing it. So we didn't really have any costs involved other than the cost of printing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. It's cool that, I mean, I don't know. It's cool whenever you just want to do shit that, might, like you said, it was on kind of the way out, but you're like, fuck it, just kind of do it.
I don't know why.
I mean,
it was, what else were we going to do? Like, this is what we're good at.
Yeah, you need a creative outlet to like put all this into.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Which is like, obviously like the goal. Like if you have the means creatively to do this, it's like, why not put it out? When does like, obviously, so the backstory is for people that are listening, it's like I met you guys at the Andrew Callahan show. We sat down and I found out you started running Glory Daze, or you're the guy behind Glory Daze.
Yeah.
I know of this through multiple people that I have interviewed on here before. Ray, who made this, all these wall cutouts and everything, that picture. He's obviously, into the bike scene with everything. So I follow him. I follow Allie from Biggie's Bullies. And I would see them post about it. And I always, kind of caught my eye because it seemed to be like something pretty unique. Like I've never seen anything else like that. In the city, you would see the shit at the convention center with the cars, and like my dad used to take us to like World of Wheels and whatever those were down there. But to see all the bikes and like all the different styles and everything and all the different people come together was pretty neat. So I mean, once you told me that, I just started berating you with questions. But when did Glory Daze come into play after all that?
I think 2018 is when I came up with the idea. It was like, I think we had the magazine rolling. It kind of paid for itself. It was just something we did on the side.
Yeah.
Every month we would probably meet with somebody, photograph them, do an interview, and just kind of put the magazine together as it went on. And then we would travel around like Austin and the West Coast, and it seemed like the scene was just doing better, and they had bigger shows. A lot of inspiration came from like Fuel Cleveland, which is another big one, the Hand-Built Show in Austin, Born Free out in California. They had an interesting way of doing motorcycle shows that was different than what you would see at the convention center. It was more based around like the artistic side of bikes, which was right up my alley. So I wanted to like try to bring something similar to that to Pittsburgh, because I feel like that would help kind of, help people understand where we're coming from too with Pittsburgh Moto. It was supposed to be kind of a thing where they work together, but it seems like Glory Daze has really outshined everything else we've done at this point.
Yeah, so, it looks pretty big.
Yeah. But it was more like, there's a lot of creative people. I don't really think most of the general public doesn't think of motorcycle builders or even people who do cars as like artists. They don't really look at them like this guy who's just in his garage building this bike as an artist. But it is like these things are sort of pieces of artwork. I mean, if you look at the way that you wouldn't know unless you're involved in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's little things just like an exhaust bracket or the way that they run, the way they put the engine together and the frame and stuff. It's really creative the way they do it. So,
I mean, you obviously have like a different initiation to it with your dad being involved. And, my dad had bikes in the garage, but they were just like old ass heaps that were just sitting in the corner. But really, like, I started to realize and like respect fabricators in general, and it's to sound funny, but it was Orange County Choppers. Yeah, like that was such like a big show growing up. My dad always had that on in the garage, and I remember watching them dudes like try to look at things and like figure out ways to make them look better but still be functional. And it's cool that, like you said, people probably wouldn't realize that unless they kind of think about it. But you said you're more involved with the creative stuff, but are you like a fabricator? Are you welding and shit like that too?
No, I don't have to do much of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always something that I didn't, I do work on bikes. I built bikes and things, but it's not something I do for a living. It's not, I don't like to call myself a bike builder. It's not like I have a shop and people are bringing parts in and I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the guys, there are people around town doing it, and I try to lift them up through what I'm really good at. So we'll give them, with Glory Daze and Pittsburgh Moto, we try to put them on blast and here's a way that people can, if you need something done on your bike, go to this shop or that shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw some shine on people.
Yeah.
So Glory Daze, you said 2018, it's the idea, and you're inspired by all these other big shows around the city. How does that...
Well, country, yeah. We didn't have one.
Yeah, sorry, country. How does that kind of go from just an idea to, your first show?
I guess I have obviously ADHD like crazy. I only found this out till recently. What's wrong with me? But whenever I get an idea for something, I just go full blast into it. So I just ran around the town, like Pittsburgh, trying to find a place that could do something like this, where we could have enough space to park bikes, have an indoor space that I could bring in bikes from around North America from different builders. And we ended up at the Cary Blast Furnaces, and it was before they had a lot of events there.
Yeah.
So when I told them what I wanted to do, there was a wait period because there had to be work done to get the occupancy permit to pass, and that happened in April of 2019, right before I was going to cancel plans for Glory Daze.
Wow.
Because I'd already started planning it in hopes that I could get some momentum growing, and then they couldn't get it going. They couldn't get it to pass, and then finally, once it did, we got the green light. Things took off.
So Cary Furnace is, it's obviously a bigger venue. You could pack a lot of shit in there. It's how did you even gauge how big this was going to be? Realistically, it was your first show. Could have just could have flopped. How did you even think about where your venue was going to be? Did you have a reputation through the magazine enough that where you thought people were going to participate?
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh Moto really was the thing that gave us the credibility to do Glory Daze. Plus, the branding and everything I was doing with it and the websites, and I made it look like an actual,
official.
Yeah, and it's just one guy, but as you know from business, if you're going to run a business, you have to make it look like it's a company running this.
We're here.
Yeah. So it is kind of I don't know. It's weird to have to do that because it's I don't need the credit.
Yeah.
I just want the event to do well. So I didn't really put myself I didn't want to make it. It's just one guy doing, because that'll just ruin it. So you sort of do have to give it the impression that this is solid. There's a solid team, everything. I got some sponsors involved just from the industry. I reached out to people. And then once I started contacting different builders from around the country that had some interesting bikes and they agreed to come, I'd start posting those online, saying this is going to be at the show, and then it started to
other people
snowball.
see it. Yeah. Where's the furthest person that came on the first show?
Oh boy, Colorado maybe.
Yeah, that's pretty decent.
Yeah,
I just, that's just it kind of speaks to how much people must have believed in it with having to bring bikes over from across the country. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot too because I was like, oh shit, this has to go well.
Yeah.
And Cary's really hard to man. It's hard to work there because it is a historic landmark. So there isn't when you book the venue, you don't get help. There's nobody there. There's no event coordinator.
Yeah, pretty much it's you just have a space with a roof over it.
Right.
And it's all on you.
Right. You have to get all these bikes in an extremely limited amount of time, and you have to curate it in a specific way that, when people walk in, it's going to be eye-catching and really make a mark. And luckily, everything went pretty good in 2019, as good as it could ever go.
Do you know how many people you had turn out there?
A couple thousand, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. I don't know.
Is that let me rephrase it. Did it meet your expectation?
Yeah, I would say that was as good as I could have went.
Okay.
2019. And
That's
it
good.
Even rained a little bit, but it wasn't on the forecast, and it was one of those ones that was a 15-minute downpour. So it didn't really matter. And it seems to have done that every year, but it just seems to not matter.
I interviewed the dude for Four Chord, and every year he throws this music festival, and last year was a tornado. This year was insane heat.
Oh yeah.
There's always something going on.
Right.
Well, whenever you're talking about flying in all these bikes and stuff like that, how many different builders were there? You have any idea?
We always do like about 100 bikes on the floor. The only thing that
Jesus.
saved our ass the first year was it's the first year of the show, so
Yeah.
I could pull all the local guys that had the really killer bikes.
Yeah.
A lot of the ones that were in the magazine. Basically, if the bike was at Glory Days, it's probably been in the magazine.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. And then there were guys from like Buffalo that had good bikes, Jersey, like some of the Ohio, some of the areas like that. And then of course we just get lucky and someone would want to travel to Pittsburgh from, the West Coast or the South or something like that. So,
Did you expect people to want to travel across the country for the first show, or was that like a surprise for you?
I guess I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I just would
Just hit up everyone
hit
and
them
see.
up in a professional way and kind of do my little marketing twist on it. And then it just sort of fell into place.
So this might be like kind of an elementary type of question, but like, what's the motive for people to bring their bikes over here? Just to show off the work that they're doing?
Pretty much, yeah. To get recognition for it, to have a platform. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's on top of it. There's a lot of photographers. There's a lot of media coverage at these events. There's a lot of eyes on it. So when someone's walking around and they see a bike that somebody built, I guess in the end, there's a chance that someone could contact them to build something for them, or it's just why else would you build it? If no one's
Networking
gonna
with
see it.
with good people that are like-minded. I'm sure that's wild that there was over 100 bikes. Like I feel like that's great.
Yeah, we've always kept it around 100. This year we're upping it a little bit to about 120, 130.
Your design of the the grounds in general, like obviously the bikes are going to be there where they are, but like what are the other things that you had there? Like was it just bikes? Did you have like food trucks? Did you have like vendors and stuff like that too?
Yeah, we had food trucks and the vendors inside and outside. We created like a little area called the Courtyard, which was a ride-in bike show. It's like a secondary bike show outside for people who weren't like invited builders or invited into the indoor show. If they were just local and didn't want to have to like bring their bike early or anything, they just rode in and parked there. So it was almost like there was two shows in one. I think the one thing that made it stand out, which is what we're trying to carry on in the future, is the fact like a lot of bike shows you have to park in a parking lot and then walk into somewhere, whether it's a convention center or somewhere else. I think what we had was this atmosphere where you can just park in the show. So you just rode up and you were already like you were part of the show itself just by coming into it. So it was kind of neat that people could kind of hang out around their bike and they didn't have to like go anywhere else. They were already there.
Yeah, that's I feel like that adds more of like a I don't know. Yeah, like you said, a unique. It's kind of stale if you park at the convention center and got to walk in this whole place. You're kind of removed from it all.
Yeah, I mean everything's different. It's not like I'm going to knock it. Obviously, even those shows have obviously influenced me in some way.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was like I'm not going to put my heart and soul into something like that. A lot of that stuff's going to require a team. Again, I didn't have any money.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make something work with what I have.
Yours kind of sounds more immersive. Like people are walking around, you're hearing fucking bikes revving and shit. Yeah, old school. That's cool.
And that's what people loved about the furnaces for the first 4 years too. They were just. Like it's an old school place. You can take tours of it. We didn't overdo the food trucks or the vendors. It was just enough for one day, but it was kind of like this mini festival that people could get away to and be kind of weird. Like it was a weird place. Like people that dressed up and got crazy. It was just interesting. I mean, you could just be who you wanted to be there.
Was there any negative about the first year? Like anything that like started that like you were like I did this I could do this better, like anything like big that was like glaring?
I wouldn't say anything big. No, I mean the negative was that I had to do it again.
Yeah,
I had to come up with more, but I had to get more.
Set the bar once, so you got to keep it going.
And you have to every year. There's like a standard now.
Well, what's your feeling on the first year? Obviously, people were probably like they give you a little bit of grace, and you have that pressure now. But it's also like you have that momentum where people were like, yeah, that show was dope last year, and you're kind of amping it up a little bit. How do you level that show up?
Well, 2020 screwed everything up.
Yeah.
I lost all my money because we'd already poured it into the marketing and everything.
That's terrible.
So then, like, for 2021, I had to come up with it. Like, the sponsors had already paid, but I'd already put that places, and now I was out. So there was, like, a whole bunch of weird shit. I had to take weird side jobs and stuff to come up with the money to do the show. I, like, gambled on some stocks that did well. Like,
that's good.
Yeah, so it was just enough to pull it off, but you can't put this out in the public. You have to act like everything's fine and dandy, and it's going to happen. But dealing with Pittsburgh, I mean, Cary was interesting because they'd redone a lot of the venue, so I had to get a hold of Allegheny County to help. Can I please use some of the space for parking? And that can change in any second, they said. Like if something happens and they don't allow me to, they just don't. So again, it's like a roll of the dice. And by then, it had been 2 years from the first show.
Yeah.
So people had already thought this. People in 2019 would be like, "Oh, I remember this from last year," and you're like, "No, you didn't."
Yeah.
It just seems like because they saw the market, it was just marketed like crazy. Which is like my specialty. It was just getting it in people's faces. Your
flyers kind of. I mean, you're a proponent of psychedelics.
Yes.
From all your artwork, anything like that, people could probably tell that. Very vibrant, very just like, trippy. Was that like, where's the name Glory Daze come from? Because it's spelled with a Z, D-A-Z-E.
Yeah, obviously, it's no secret that I'm a big fan of psychedelics and marijuana and everything else that, makes, I think any creative person loves to expand their mind and venture off into different levels of consciousness. It's just fun. But I just thought like motorcycle industry is always about like flaming skulls and metal music, and I thought it would be funny, or not funny, but like fun. Like it'd be different to have something that was more like funk, like some soul, some groove to it, and kind of give it like an old school feel that was more just a little bit different than what the industry usually sees.
Yeah, that's why I even asked you that, because I remember like specifically seeing these posters and like my eye going towards it and just thinking that like like you said, you usually think of like skulls and flames and shit.
Right.
So seeing your stuff was like intriguing because you have like wild characters on these like trippy bikes that are like melting over the hills. And I don't know, it's like you said, it's unique. It kind of just goes back to being creative in that way, I guess. But in this time of you planning these shows and doing the magazine whenever you're doing it, what is like what's your, I mean, did you ever think it was going to grow to be what it is?
I don't really think I thought it. No, I didn't. I thought I was going to end it. I thought this year was going to be the last year.
Like this year?
Yeah, because it was just getting too big and it was becoming a lot to handle.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me to get enough space to do anything. Every year we basically ran out of room. I mean, the road into Cary is really long, but it would even get so backed up. Like people would call the cops on us because it would be out near the Rankin Bridge.
Yeah.
But the cops were at our show, so it was a weird dynamic to have to try to juggle this thing where it was like, how much bigger can this thing get? We had people flying in from other countries.
Really?
Yeah. Like
where at?
Brazil.
Holy shit! They flew a bike in?
I don't know. They would just come visit the show.
Oh, okay,
like
yeah.
People wanted to come. Like
wow.
So it became like this big thing. That was a little bit like I didn't know how am I going to take this thing to another level. So I thought, let's just do it one more year. It's a lot of stress, and then you start getting into now you're like a public figure sort of. So people try to cancel us for things, just weird stuff that's out of our control or things like that, and it just was like really mental health. And then Iron City, one of our main sponsors, kind of tossed the idea out to us about doing the show at their venue at Pittsburgh Brewing Company in Creighton this year. And at first I was hesitant. I didn't really want to move it because I didn't want to lose out on like the vibe at the furnaces. But after visiting the facility, Alexa was like, she was all about it.
Kind of has the same vibe. It's some
very similar.
Yeah, similar.
It's actually older than the bus. It's like 8 years older.
Looks nicer though.
Yeah, and it's a lot bigger, and it's like it's one of those things where she was all about it, and I was kind of hesitant. But I think like once you sit back and think about it, you're like, look, we either do this one more year or we turn it up to 100 and just keep it going at a different level. So now it's going to be twice as big, and we've just added cars and stunt shows, and
Jesus,
it's going to be multiple days. It's going to be interesting.
So, I mean, like while you're planning these, obviously the first year you did this yourself, and you probably had a couple people helping you, the logistics, Alexa, everything like that. But as it grows, was it all? I mean,
it was all me, really. Yeah, I had people help me during the day of, which was just my family and friends.
Yeah,
and it's still kind of that way, except has been a lot of great people that have reached out to help me like manage like different parts of it.
Well, how do you deal with it all?
I make spreadsheets and I look at it and I obsess over it.
Are you a list guy?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll forget about them, but no, I just kind of make my own systems and keep track of things, and I go overboard. You know? So I'll make sure I email the builders, and I'll make sure I email the vendors, and I'll just stay up with it as much as I can because I don't want to drop the ball. Yeah,
I mean, you got 100 bikes. You know, that's probably that's a lot of people to like keep track of. You said the logistics getting in and out of there is pretty wild. How? I mean, like, how did you manage that the first time? Is that just kind of touch and go?
It was. I think 2019 probably the most stressful day of my life. Yeah, trying to get because I had an idea. I didn't know like how many bikes are gonna fit in like this 200 by 90 foot is really what it was in the blast furnace the first year, and I didn't know how I wanted to display it. I didn't know how everything was gonna fit. So a lot of it was on the fly. You know, I had specific bikes I knew that I wanted to place in particular areas. I didn't want to put like a lot of blue bikes next to each other. So there. You know, I mean, the night I didn't sleep for the whole week leading up to it. I was just,
I bet.
Yeah. And then over the years, I slowly was like, okay, I'm going to make this easier for myself next year. I'm going to create like a template and for like the layout of the show. And I'm going to do like, make a smart objects floor plan on Photoshop where I can plug photos of the bikes in and just drag them around.
Wow.
Yeah, so like a lot of that stuff, you know, I still used a lot of my creative side to just create like almost a plan.
Yeah.
And it's still always being worked on, but it's to the point where now it's like, if I have somebody contact me about being a vendor wanting in the show, I immediately pull up my programs and I start plugging them in. And it just keeps things a little bit easier for me just to manage in the long run.
Wow. Seems to be stressful.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
I only plan small ass shows and I make myself sick about it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, so what do you do for your mental health with all this?
Psychedelics.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've developed a heart issue from the stress. Like there has been health issues because of the
What do you
stress.
mean you developed it? Like is this from like the last few years?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's just something that's come on. Like I've gone into AFib, like different things like that, where I've just had heart arrhythmias and different stuff. It's something I'm dealing with now. I'm trying to figure it out.
That's another factor to just add onto your plate, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, let me ask you about these psychedelics. So, like, when does your introduction to that take place?
Oh man, I mean, I've always been in specifically mushrooms. We can just say that psilocybin has been my main interest. Obviously, acid's been around, and DMT and things like that. But I would say mostly the tryptamines have been what really kept me interested. I just think the way that they open your mind and kind of allow you to do some work on yourself has been kind of neat. But really, since I was younger, I mean, there was always been places in West Virginia that had little brown mushrooms pop up and people talked about them, but you didn't think about it the same way. Like as I started to get older, you'd treat them different. Like the mental health thing kind of came into play, and Alexa and I would just do these things called Magic Mondays during the pandemic, where we would just go get a cabin on Monday and have at it. And
like, how much are you eating at a time? Are you going deep?
I'm going, heroic dose. She's
like what? Like 3.5, 7?
Plus 5, usually 5 grams would be like a solid one. But, you know, it's not. It all depends. I mean, I've taken 3.5 grammers by myself in the woods.
Yeah,
that have
by yourself in the woods. Jesus, I've only taken a cut. Back in high school, they used to make these truffle chocolates. It was just these ground up mushrooms and covered with nasty Jaeger wax chocolate.
Oh yeah,
and you know, that was just like, you would just go deep on that stuff. But it's interesting because like that was just like, you know, high school once or twice here and there. But it's like, as someone, are you like an active? You're actively still experimenting with psychedelics?
I mean, yeah, it's not something I do all the time now. I feel like I've got to the point where I'm trying to stay in the mindset without it. Yeah. If that makes sense. I'm trying to take the lessons learned and implement them into everyday life.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that afterglow that you feel after, you know, fixing yourself on a weekend or something, I'm trying to just kind of remember that headspace and be able to manage it and stay in that place as much as I can.
Yeah. Are you someone that feels works better under the influence of that? Or do you think it, I mean, I guess it depends on what work we're talking about.
Yeah, people talk about, they think I do mushrooms and stuff when I do my art, and I don't. I can't, like, obviously, I think a lot of people were probably like this. It just seems so trivial and meaningless to sit there and draw pictures.
Yeah. But you'll stare at a tree for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'll have
see
a conversation with the forest. Yeah.
See water dripping through the veins of the leaves, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That makes sense now that you say that. Like, I don't imagine you being able to trip pretty hard and like do this like crazy artwork on a Wacom tablet.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Screens, I don't want to deal with it. I want to go outside, or I want to like take care of old traumas, or I want to like go in. I want to figure out quantum physics. I want to do these different things. I'm always somebody asking questions, and it's annoying to myself that I'm so interested in everything.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you're preaching to the choir. I could literally just talk to anyone about everything, and I feel like I'm almost like a nuisance sometimes. Like, whenever we left the show, the Andrew Callahan show, I asked my wife, I was like, do you think I was being like annoying at asking all these questions? And she was like, no, I think it was interesting. I think that he found it interesting that you were interested in something that he was doing.
Yeah. And
because like I get nervous about that. Like if I meet someone who's doing things that are cool, I'm immediately just inquisitive about, their lives and like, what they're doing and how they got to that point. But yeah, I don't know. And were you like this in high school? Like, were you someone that like, did you care about school? Were you caring, or did you care about like learning at all?
I think I cared because I had pressure from like my mother to get good grades.
Okay.
Because I don't know, or I just didn't want to disappoint people. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think that was about it.
Like, were you someone like, for instance, in history class and shit like that, I was just like serving time. I wasn't like retaining anything.
I mean, I had decent grades through school. I did well. I had a scholarship for college, so I didn't have to pay for it, which was nice.
Yeah.
I did well enough to where, at least the guilt of not failing classes was enough. And it wasn't like I tried really hard. I would do enough to get the A or the B plus type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you someone now, like I scoured your Instagram, but I saw you post documentaries, fixing your, talking about the ones fixing your mental health with psychedelics, things like that. Are you someone that's like actively, that's still trying to like learn, and like, are you someone that goes down like YouTube rabbit holes just learning different shit?
Yeah, I mean, I with the psychs, I got more into the consciousness side, trying to figure out what the hell all this is.
Yeah.
Without going too far.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I've seen a lot of the woo friends kind of go off the edge a little bit, but at the same time, it's just, there's I don't know anything now. Like the more I know, like the less I know. There's so many quotes that
apply to it.
That. Yeah. But it's just one of those things. I just want to be happy and chill and just kind of float through, and then not be so fearful of death. I think I had a lot of existential dread in my 30s, moving through my 30s, and just worried about death or things changing.
I make myself fucking sick about thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, like a 30-minute car ride, and I'd just be in tears over something. And I'm like, I gotta fucking fix this shit, So, and I didn't really think about the psychs being the answer to it. It was just like something that popped up again, and I got back into in a different way. And with Alexa there, it was a lot easier because I'd have someone at least to keep an eye on me for the most part. Then I got involved in I really enjoyed mycology and like that side of it as well. Yeah. So that's again another interest, Then I got in quantum physics. And I just don't have time to do all this stuff.
I know, there's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, I know just enough to talk about it, but I could never like sit in front of a real master and really, contribute much.
Well, I mean, like your day to day, I feel like Glory Daze got to take up your entire year almost.
It's a full-time job. Yeah.
That's a full-time job now?
Yeah, it's at the level where it's every day. It's all day.
Yeah, just figuring shit out.
Yeah.
That's just, and this year it's September 21st. Mm-hmm. You said it's multiple days?
No, next year will be 2 days. That's the plan. This year it's our first year at Pittsburgh Brewing, so I wanted to keep it chill.
Feel it out.
Yeah, my wife's pregnant. We're having a baby in late August, so
I didn't want to put
too much pressure.
God. So you're just adding more plates spinning in the air.
I guess so.
That's good though. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of the same way. I don't really like to be just like, you know, stagnant, not doing nothing. Like if I call off work or something like that, I have like a crazy anxiety that like takes over me, and I'm like, you know, I need to be doing something. I need to be
but do
figuring
you
shit.
think that that's like, this is what is that a problem? Should we be okay with just not doing anything? Because that's one of the things I'm trying to work on too.
We should be, and I feel like that I have been more conscious. I'd say like the first 4 months of this year were probably like the worst of my life. We lost a dog December 30th. Like we thought we were taking her into the vet just for to get like an antibiotic, and they were like, you got to fucking put her down, she has bad cancer.
Sorry,
and it like put me into like a pretty crazy, you know, spiral, to the point where I wanted to quit this, and I just felt like this was meaningless. I was like, I don't give a fuck about people, I don't care about hearing about people's lives right now. But I think that me trying to process all that and trying to not go off the deep end with it all and try to keep on, you know, pushing, I have been kind of giving myself more grace. For like the first 5 years of this podcast, I didn't skip a week. It was an episode every single week for 5 years. There was like 1 or 2, and I would put this like crazy like level of anxiety that would just make me sick if I like had to skip an episode. If I didn't have an episode done, I'd be up on Wednesday night 2 a.m. just like trying to get it out. And I start to like realize that like it really ain't that big of a deal, you know what I mean? Like, and I try to be reflective on like the podcasts and the things that I like. You know, when people skip it, it's like, you know, these people are just human beings that are like trying to figure shit out. So long story short, I do think that it's a problem that you can't feel like that you can't be okay with just, you know, having your like, you know, just being in solitude kind of.
Yeah, because I feel guilty if I have a day, I don't have days off.
Yeah.
Really, you know, because I can fill my time from
easy
morning to night just
anything
sitting behind a computer. Yeah,
anything like that. But if I'm just sitting there like, you know, getting caught in a doom scroll or something like that, or, you know, I don't know, I've been trying to think of it differently now, where it's just like, you know, kind of just like some mental R&R, but still then it's a snake eating its tail, because then I'm like, oh, I wasted like 4 hours just like relaxing, and now I got to work twice as much to get this shit done again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's all work in progress, right? What do we know?
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, like, because it's probably similar with Glory Daze. I think like, why am I doing this type of, because people will ask me that too. What's the motivation behind? I don't, you know, like there's so many things I can say. But
what do you think it is though?
I just think that it's such a damn positive thing to everybody. Like, I'll have people come to me and tell me stories that'll put me in tears about how like they've came to the show and, you know, they've never felt this level of like appreciation from people. They never thought they had talent. And now they're put on this platform where they're like, you know, there's sort of like, there's somebody special here. That's just that story 100 times. There's other ones where people will come in from somewhere else and run into old family members and reconcile issues they had, like little stuff. There's so many interesting stories. There's people that have proposed at our show. There's just a lot of happy, positive stuff. Like,
that makes it worth it.
Try to say it's just a very good vibes environment. And I also just think people get to be themselves.
Yeah.
There. It's just like anything else where you can kind of dress up in a funky way and just go be yourself. And there's very little places I think you can do that just on the day to day when you're just surrounded by like a bunch of interesting people. We say it's like Glory Daze is everything from like crust punks to politicians. It's like the motorcycle world is so big and so wide. And even like we were talking about earlier, like with the flaming skulls, that's not my thing, you know, but it's there. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't really care for that kind of cheesy side of the motorcycle world.
Yeah.
I like more of, you know, it's not kind of like the creative side, you know, the intellectuals who can build these interesting machines.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of goes to say to what you're talking about, because like I've seen you do like the helmet awards, you know, the custom helmets, and like how does the idea of like giving away these accolades come into play of the show?
Well, the helmet thing is Bell Helmets was one of our first sponsors, and one of the ideas was they would give me 10 helmets for custom painters to paint. So I just kind of came up with the idea of this thing called the Trippy 10, which was I'm going to select 10 artists in the industry from around the country to paint a helmet for the show. It would be put on display at Glory Daze. We would give it like a photo shoot and do some marketing for it, obviously. And then they would just get the helmet back. It was something that a lot of people didn't do. Usually whenever they did a helmet show, it was like they had to just donate their time and it would get raffled off or something. But as an artist, I thought, well, it's a kind of annoying where everybody always, we were supposed to just donate everything, or it has to be for like a cause, where it's like, what if the cause is just like to give back to the painters in the motorsports industry itself? Like,
struggling artists, bro. It's like, help us out.
Right. So it was fun. Like, let them donate, let them raffle it off or do whatever they want with it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, how many different, you have a lot of different awards, right?
We don't really do many awards.
Well, what are those plaques that you give out?
Oh, the plaque for the bikes?
Yeah, I mean,
everybody just gets, like, everybody who's a builder, I just print a custom plaque.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's like small things like that, I think, are what, obviously it's what I notice things like that, just because that's so cool that, like, it feels like you've something you could hang on your wall. Like, I was a part of this experience.
Yeah, put it up in your garage.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. Now, as far as like your day to day, I'm sure that it's busy with all your work, but like, besides that, are you still get to ride often?
I ride when I can. Yeah, I'm always working on bikes.
Yeah.
Lex and I, her bike's good. It's set up and ready to roll, but she's pregnant.
Yeah.
So she has to wait till after the baby's born to get back on it. But I got a.
Was she into bikes?
She wasn't, but she learned quickly. I taught her how to ride like 2016, 2017.
She probably had no choice, huh?
She wanted to.
That's her your whole life. Yeah. She's like, I got to get involved with this or I'm going to lose half of him.
She learned it right away.
That's cool, though. Yeah,
she did some figure eights in a parking lot at an old Harley Sportster, and then like after 3 days was immediately just on the road riding. So she picked it up really quick.
Wow.
And then she's just been riding ever since.
What kind of bike does she have?
Shovelhead chopper. Yeah.
And what about, and like, was that something that you guys, customized out? Like, did she put her input in on it?
That one, she has a couple shovel heads. One of them I bought that I was going to build for her, and then at the end of last year, one of the painters, Jasmine J is her name, from our helmet show, built a really cool bike and was selling it. And I was like, why don't you just buy this? Because you love it. It was built by a woman. It's a perfect setup for her. It had like a mini front brake. It was just the way it was set up. It was like a perfect fit. So she ended up picking that up, and it's a show bike that you can ride.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect fit for Alexa.
What about you?
Me, I like building my own or having like people involved in it. So like I'm working on a new one now, like a new chopper that's it's slowly coming together. But we have a garage full of Harleys at this point.
You just pick whenever you get to ride.
I've just built them over the years.
Do you have a favorite? Like, is there a bike that you've had your entire life that you just won't ever get rid of?
Oh, I used to think that, and I sold one recently. I just don't have any room. I'm out, But I think the new one I'm building will be my favorite because I finally have some of the financials to be able to spend it on this thing and have it done right and have like more people involved. And I'll paint the thing myself and do a lot of the work myself too.
Yeah.
But because I've taken my time and doing things a little more right than I have in the past, I think it'll end up being pretty cool when it's finished up.
Yeah, that's neat. So you just said you're having a kid here soon. Are you ready for that?
I don't know.
Yeah. How do people prepare for that?
They tell you how your life's going to be ruined. Everybody's just like, oh, your life's going to be ruined. It's like, maybe it won't.
Yeah. Maybe quit telling me that.
Maybe I'll be an okay dad.
Yeah. Quit programming my mind subconsciously.
There's no way to prepare. You can just prepare mentally. It's something where even Alexa and I, it wasn't something we always figured we would, but I'm 39. So I'm like, if we're going to do this, we got to do it now. And we thought we would try at the end of last year, and if it didn't work out, we would wait till like it would time out to where it would be after Glory Days, but it just happened immediately. Just kind of surprised. I think my dad called me a day or two after Christmas and said, unfortunately, he had COVID, so we were again at risk. This happens every year. And then the same day, Alexa found out she was pregnant.
No shit.
So it was just a whole bunch of like,
God, getting pulled both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Well, what's your dad think about this?
The baby? Or
No,
the
about the show and like, you know, kind of what you've created. I mean, you said you started in the garage. I mean, he's obviously watched you the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, he helps me with it. He's one of the people that he's a no bullshit guy, old school. He helps me with the gate, like taking him and my mom, my sister. So it is it's just people that I have that unfortunately they have to help me with. But I think he likes seeing it. I think he enjoys seeing it grow and meeting the guys. A lot of the old bikers. I mean, they can sit there and bullshit forever.
100%, dude. Them guys are one. I mean, they march by the beat of the same drum. Mm-hmm. Once they get around like mines, you can go off forever.
Yeah, they can talk chrome for days.
Well, so I mean, like, what is the goals? I mean, obviously, Glory Daze is happening this year, September 21st. Got all sorts of shit going on there. You're doing the creative side of things with Wild Native. You're doing your artistic stuff. You're about to have a child. I mean, what are the goals? I know it's a loaded question, but like, do you have some?
No, I mean, I think at this point, I would like to, I guess, essentially retire from all work that's not our own projects. I'm close. You know, I got a couple years maybe just with some contracts type of things that I got to wrap up, but I would just love to be able to do like the art, have Alexa do her photography, stick with the shows, and just keep it more simple. I think the goal is simplification. We need to consolidate and simplify our life to where we have more free time, obviously, for our daughter that's coming, and just more family stuff. You know, people are getting older and health issues, so we just want to just kind of chisel it down into the stuff that's going to work in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you think I forgot to mention about the show or forgot to ask about? Things that you wanted to touch on specifically? Like, what can people expect if they go to the Glory Daze show?
Oh, man. It's from noon to 7, September 21st at Pittsburgh Brewing Company up in Creighton. Really, the way we have it set up now, a little different than the past, but we kept the meat and potatoes. So there's still going to be an indoor bike exhibit with all the artistically created bikes, but the difference from the past is now we have more indoor space. There's different parts of Iron City that we get to work with. So there's a brew house. We have like a VIP section. We're doing like a small movie premiere on Friday night. We're adding a car and hot rod show outside, which is pretty cool.
Are you a car guy?
I've always been more motorcycles, but I mean, of course, I'm going to be interested in cars. I mean, I just feel like it just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Plus, it's two worlds that just seem to fit together.
Are you at a point now where you take submissions for bikes, or do you just choose everyone who kind of comes in there?
You know, I do both. A lot of guys will just keep building them every year, every other year, and then obviously if they've been to the show and I know them and the bike fits the vibe, then that gets put in. But I'm always taking submissions, always looking for new stuff. It's hard to turn people down. It's one of those things that's one of the things I don't like to do. But what are you going to do? You know, there's a lot of people that would love to get in the show, but there's only so many. Like, a lot of people build a lot of the same bikes. They will come to the show and they'll see bikes they like and they'll build one like it, but it's hard for me to just keep putting like the same stuff in there. So if anybody's listening and they do want to get into the show, build something different. Like, go get weird and wild with it. Pick a platform that people don't normally use.
Yeah. All right. I mean, obviously September 21st, people, I mean, is this ticketed event? Where do people buy tickets?
Yeah, we'll have them online. You can pre-purchase tickets at Glory Daze, GLORYDAZEPGH.com. And also you can just pay at the gate. So we'll have wristbands and just come on, show up. It's $20 entry.
That's good. What about Pittsburgh Moto? You got any of those coming out soon?
We have one more coming out, and then we're going to end the subscription model because it's just become too much of a hassle.
Yeah.
We're going to switch to like a different platform, maybe put out like one bigger book every year and just maybe focus more on parts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rework Pittsburgh Moto. I just think it's, at this point, it's one of those things where financially we got to think like how worth it is it to just keep doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's good. We're not done with the podcast, but I think that we covered everything about that, right?
I think so.
For what it is, your whole entire life in an hour.
Yeah,
did we cover your whole life in an hour? But I do an ending segment with everyone called Desert Island Questions. This is the exciting part. Desert Island questions. Whenever I give each guest 3 categories to take with them on a desert island and use until they starve to death and die. First category is movies. What are 3 movies that you would take with you to watch over and over and over again?
Oh, man, this is hard. I don't watch a lot of movies.
No, you're not a movie guy?
Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
I could probably stick with Tarantino on this one.
That's good. What are your top 3 Tarantinos?
That's a tough. Inglourious Basterds, Pulp Fiction, and then you can just fill in the blank with so many other ones.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would say that Pulp Fiction might be towards the lower end of my list.
Really? I think it's just because it's the one that got me.
Yeah, into
when I was
it all.
younger, I was like, oh, dialogue can be the main focus of a movie. That's interesting.
I was also a little bit too young to watch it, to have that nostalgic tie to it back then. Like, I remember it, but I didn't understand it. I didn't listen to it and process it all. But Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, I mean, they're all just
Hollywood.
Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
It's all good. What about a couple other movies? Humor me. Like, what did you like growing up?
I'm trying to think. I mean, it's cheesy as it is. Like Fight Club growing up was fun. Like I loved it, movies that made me think. Even like
Donnie Darko and shit.
I never really, but I didn't watch it till I was older, so I didn't get the same effect that a lot of other people did.
I mean, I don't even think that the people that watched it when they were, I remember I watched that at like my 14th birthday party, and everyone was like, yeah, this movie's so fucking wild and good, but no one understood it.
Yeah.
It probably, and I think if you watch it as an adult, you understand it kind of doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a weird movie.
Yeah. I mean, but then there's movies recently, like Birdman, I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
There's even the movie White Noise with Adam Driver, I really liked. And then, but a lot of the stuff, I can't even remember a lot of the names of. I went on a bender where I just went down to like weird indie Japanese films and French films for years.
Wow.
Where it was I just read them.
That's good.
But I mean, it's, with movies, I'm not like a guy who's like really into Marvel and like different stuff like that.
I don't watch any Marvel movies.
Yeah, a lot of my stuff has to have a little bit more. I did love The Sopranos growing up.
Fuck yeah.
A lot of basically HBO growing up was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you, what did you think of the Bike Riders movie? I know that you guys did that event.
It was cool, man. It was better than I expected. Not that I just didn't know what to expect really, but some of the previews I was like, oh, I hope it's not cheesy. It was actually a really good movie.
Yeah, that's good.
It did remind me of, they said it was kind of like Goodfellas with bikes, and it really was. It did kind of fit that vibe. The acting was really cool. I definitely recommend it if anybody's into that style movie.
Yeah, I got to watch it. I just don't watch previews anymore of any movies. We just went to go see this movie called Kinds of Kindness, which is the same guy who did like The Lobster and The Killing of the Sacred Deer. So all of his movies are fucking insane. And I had no bearing on what it was going to be like. Just the wildest.
Yeah.
Just 3 movies in one, completely different, just so fucking crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I like a movie. Second category though. Are you a reader?
Maybe halfway.
Do you have like a favorite book or two?
No, I wouldn't say stories. I probably read more to learn. I would say like I read like quantum physics. I did love Hunter S. Thompson growing up, a lot of his stuff. And then I'm trying to think, a lot of the stuff has just been more around like learning about consciousness and different things. Terrence McKenna's books were always fun.
Yeah.
But even Donald Hoffman and different like people that are physicists and professors and stuff will write books just about a theory or they have or something, and I'll check it out. Just
That's good.
Yeah.
What about third category, 3 CDs?
CDs.
Yeah.
Oh man, like does CD mean it has to be from a particular time?
Not necessarily. More just like, do you got an album? Albums that you like?
Yeah, I mean,
I know you're a big music guy.
I'm a big music guy. I have a list on my phone because I'll forget, right? And I'm not going to put my phone out. I'm going to give it a shot. But I mean, I'm like a big My Morning Jacket, The National fan. There's a lot of interesting bands like Rose City Band out of Portland. They have Ripley Johnson has a couple projects. I love Moon Duo and Wooden Ships. It's a lot of psychedelic stuff. The Black Angels have always been on the list.
I've only known of My Morning Jacket.
Yeah.
That's the only band that you've mentioned that I've known of.
Oh man,
That's all right though.
yeah,
That's all right. That's
It's obscure.
I don't need to know. I don't need to know who they are, but those are good choices. That's stuff that you'll listen to for the rest of your life on a desert island until you starve to death and die.
I could listen to music. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. Third to last question: what's the best concert you've ever been to?
That's tough. That's tough.
I know you said you went to all these
I've
festivals.
been to a lot.
Like
Yeah.
any epic shit that like stands out?
Obviously have been some My Morning Jacket shows. We did do their Louisville show that they played for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
That's where they're from, and it was epic. There was an Arcade Fire show that I was like really blown away by.
Wow.
I thought was one of the best shows I've seen.
Yeah, I like Arcade Fire.
But then I've seen Radiohead and Tom Petty and stuff too, and I've
Yeah.
seen Elton John, like stuff like that. How do you go
Epic
wrong
stuff.
there? Yeah.
That's good. Okay, third to last question. You're getting ready to go on a road trip. You go into a gas station and get a snack. What's your snack of choice?
Water.
Water?
Sparkling water.
You're not a snack guy?
No, gas stations are tough, man. Like
They're tough. They're shitty.
If I can eat anything I want, gas station pizza or something for
Okay.
sure, I'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but at this point, I can't really have it.
Yeah, that's tough. Okay, well, death row meal is the second to last thing. Death row meal. If you get a meal before you get put to death, appetizer, main course, and a dessert, what is it?
This is tough. Maybe appetizer, like some seared scallops.
Okay.
Nice. Main course, just big, fat, juicy burger.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out before I die.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What about a dessert?
Oh man, if that's my last thing I'm gonna eat, that's
Yeah.
tough.
Tough.
Yeah, right. Maybe my mom's berry pie. If I'm gonna be real specific.
Yeah, that's
it
good.
It has to be my mom's.
Okay.
'Cause everything else blows.
That's
compared
good.
to My mom's.
Are you a cook?
Not really. No. I mean, I do, but
Yeah,
I wouldn't call myself a cook.
Nothing crazy?
No, just simple.
Okay. Last question. If you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Jeez.
I know. Loaded.
Oh man.
If it's not a loved one, too.
Okay. I know, right?
No, I'm just
I mean, I could even say like Terrence McKenna, like just because he's on my mind right now.
it's a good
would
answer.
Be an interesting one. Yeah.
It would be wild. My ideal situation whenever I ask people this, because they're like,
Ram Dass.
there you go.
Ram Dass, yeah.
There you go. That would be a wild one. Yeah, but my ideal, idea whenever I ask people this is like, just getting stuck in a waiting room, just you two, and just being able to talk for a couple hours. But you would imagine like, the answers that people give you. I've talked to a lot of people and they give some wild answers.
I bet.
Everything from Stan Marsh to Ram Dass.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People have picked Stalin. People have picked Democrats have picked Trump, and like I would love to just ask that guy what he's thinking. But you get some interesting answers. But I appreciate you coming over, taking some time, talking to me about all you do. Very
Thanks for
interesting
having
guy. Take a second, please tell everyone where they could find all your work, how they could check out your shit, Glory Daze, the whole thing.
Easiest place is just on my website, kurtdiserio.com, KURTDISERIO.com.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
Simple
the
as that.
easiest. Everything's on there.
All right, everyone else, I appreciate yinz as usual. Each and every week, we're back with another great guest doing great things in the city. See yinz all at Glory Daze.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast.